As we all know, there are men, women, and children who are dying in that part of the world, and it doesn't look like it's going to be letting up anytime soon. There are conflicting answers of whether there will be a ceasefire, whether a relief aid will be going in, what's happened to those hostages, if we will find them, should we ever find them, are we ever going to find them, and none other than our, well, I guess now our soon to be former president, Joe Biden, responds about the hostage deal in a whopping 16 seconds. Is it a coherent answer? No, it's not. It's not at all. In fact, it's very sad and disturbing because there's so many things to unpack here. So, 16 seconds. Don't get hit in the head with a camera.
President Biden, do you think that you can get a hostage deal by the end of your term?
You think you can get hit in the head by a camera behind?
So, in case you don't know, Biden responds to a question about Hamas hostage deal. His answer is, do you think you can get hit in the head by the camera behind you? Here, in case you're just tuning in, we will rewind and play it again.
President Biden, do you think that you can get a hostage deal by the end of your term?
You think you can get hit in the head by a camera behind you? All right. Thank you all. Well, Mr. President.
Well, that's not a good answer. So Biden snaps at Israeli reporter in latest terse moment with media. Think you keep from getting hit in the head by a camera behind you, which is never a proper response. But yet here we are. Lame duck President Biden rounded on an Israeli TV reporter Tuesday after the correspondent asked whether Biden believed an agreement to free dozens of hostages held by Hamas in the Gaza Strip is possible before he leaves office in January. President Biden, do you think you get a hostage deal by the end of your term? Israeli Channel 13's Nir Kars asked Biden, 81, ahead of his meeting with Isaac Herzog, president of the Jewish state. Do you think you keep from getting hit in the head by a camera behind you? He snapped an irritated-looking Biden in response. Cross caught the moment on video and appeared to hold back laughter as Biden pivoted to his Oval Office meetings with Herzog, who he hailed as a personal friend. Everyone's a personal friend. The outgoing president has a history of lashing out reporters who peppered him with questions he doesn't like. Back in May, for instance, Biden asked a reporter who queried whether he intended to serve out a full second term, did you fall on your head or something? The president dropped his bid for re-election weeks later on July 21st. Biden and his administration have long pursued a hostage deal between Israel and Hamas while seeking to bring an end to the fighting in the Gaza Strip. Now, I didn't seem to get that memo. Did anyone else get that memo? Because I sure as heck didn't. And of course, and it's important to note the Biden administration confirmed Israel will face zero consequences for the laid-back aid getting into Gaza following Blinken and Austin's threat to withhold military assistance if key demands weren't met within a 30-day timeline. So let's go ahead and play this video.
Okay, but I don't believe I heard an answer to my question in there.
Look, Matt,
are they have they met? You guys yourself set this 30-day deadline. Today is the deadline. Did they meet it, or did they not?
So I think first, when it comes to assessing the humanitarian situation in Gaza and the region writ large, I think it's important to remember that we have constant evaluations ongoing and constant assessments ongoing about the circumstances. And first, let me just say specifically before I answer your question that we've seen some steps being taken over the past 30 days. Specifically, we have seen the reopening of the Erez crossing. We have seen a new crossing at Kisufim open. As it relates to the Jordanian Armed Forces corridor, we have seen a waivement of certain customs requirement that humanitarian organizations had previously said was an obstacle. We've also seen some additional delivery routes open within Gaza, including Bani Suhelia Road, expanding the use of the Israeli fence road, as well as repairing the coastal road. We've also seen some deliveries resume and restored in the north, first to Gaza City, and in this most recent week to areas surrounding Jabalia. We've also seen the expansion of the Musavi humanitarian zone, and we have seen the institution of periodic operational pauses. This is all to say, Matt, we at this time have not made an assessment that there that the Israelis are in violation of U.S. law. But most importantly, we are going to continue to watch how these steps that they've taken, how they are being implemented, how that they can be continued to be expanded on. And through that, we're going to continue to assess their compliance with U.S. law. We've seen some progress being made. We would like to see some more changes happen. We believe that had it not been for U.S. intervention, these changes may not have ever taken place. But most importantly, we want to see continued progress. And that's what we're looking for.
Now, of course, we all know that since Donald Trump got elected on November 5th, it is quite clear that there is a change happening, should there be some kind of ceasefire. But as it stands right now, Donald Trump, what can he do in regards to calling for a ceasefire or either that ending the conflict? Do I think it's going to end? Well, of course, the conflict will somewhat adapt and change, but will the war be ongoing? Oh, absolutely. As I've said before, after October 7th, all what this war has done, and since then for the previous year, because that's how long it's lasted, and now a couple of months after, especially October, all it's did is lay the foundation for the next war. Can Trump reconcile Israel and Iran? And I just want to get to this point in the article right here. Security concerns. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu insists that his country will not stop the war until all goals are achieved. Those include return to hostages, which I don't know if we're going to find those people, and Israel's displaced residents in the north, as well as making sure Gaza and Hezbollah do not pose a threat to Israel's security. I think the fight is pretty much, it's the world's most one-sided fist fight caught on film. Men, women, and children are starving. It's a foregone conclusion. People are dying. The way Israel sees it, the Biden administration has done very little to address these concerns, even though they've been getting billions of dollars in aid and weapons. In the South, the Democrats have rejected the idea of Israel entering Rafah, which has become a stronghold for Hamas militants. They also reject the idea of Israel controlling the Rafah crossing and the Philadelphia corridor, through which Israel claims radical Palestinian groups have been smuggling arms, money, and combatants. In the North, the Biden administration has not achieved much either. From the standpoint of Israel, Amos Hudson, Biden's special representative, who has been in charge of mediating between the sides, has failed to push Hezbollah north to the Litani River. With Trump soon to be in charge, Netanyahu will demand that this reality change. He will push for the creation of a buffer zone, the disarmament of Hezbollah, Israel's main rival, and he will also apply pressure on Washington to take a tougher stance on Iran, which the prime minister blames for the instability in the region. Will there ever be a year or a time without war on this planet? Will there ever be a time when there truly is peace? The answer is no. It doesn't look like that's going to be happening anytime soon. The conflict is ongoing. No one was going to bring a peace deal. Either that, there could be some kind of ceasefire, but have no fear, folks. Knowing how consistent war is and how there is money to be made by it at the drop of a hat, at the drop of a dime, at the drop of a needle, at the drop of anything, it will be ongoing and more people will suffer and billions of money and aid will happen. What about the people who are suffering still with the aftermath of the hurricanes that hit Georgia, Florida, North and South Carolina? What about the people of East Palestine, Ohio? What about, I don't know, the people of Lahaina? Where's our billions of dollars of aid? Where is the support for the American people? America first. Why are we not in first place? What about our citizens? During his first 4 years in office, Trump took a hawkish approach towards Iran. He sanctioned the Islamic Republic and those who dared to buy oil from it. He ordered the killing of Qasem Soleimani, one of the country's top commanders, and he slammed the door on a joint comprehensive plan of action, an agreement between Iran and the world powers that aimed to monitor Tehran's nuclear program in exchange for easing of sanctions. Chances are high that he might opt for this approach again, but Iran warns that it could spell trouble for the region and the world. In order for him to succeed as an American president, and in order to end the economic hardships at home, Trump might want to decrease tensions with Russia and Iran, which I hope he's capable of. It would be ever so nice, but that doesn't seem to be happening. Again, anything can happen between now and when Trump gets into office. I mean, the Biden-Harris administration has plenty of opportunities to de-escalate. Maybe, dare I say it, just before Biden leaves. What a shocking situation it would be if he could actually call for a ceasefire. Actually sit down with Putin. But as we have pointed out, as have everyone else in independent media across the political spectrum, as have so many people have mentioned on their own personal social media posts, that's including you, my wonderful viewers, and everybody else, it doesn't look like this administration, the Biden-Harris administration, isn't interested at all at calling for a ceasefire. If he fails to do so, the conflict might expand in the region and force the intervention of the United States. What could go wrong? If that happens, oil and gas deliveries from the Gulf might stop, and this in turn might lead to a global economic meltdown, the consequences of which would be felt for decades to come. Millions of refugees will be flowing to the U.S. and Europe. Nobody will be left untouched, but the West will remain the loser in such a case. Al Jannati agrees the repercussions might be dire, but believes that this time Washington will choose to be more balanced. Well, let's talk about being balanced. Folks, this is a recent video that was uploaded by Case Study QB today, just before the show went live.
The U.S. is backing off on a threat to withhold military support if Israel did not allow more humanitarian aid into Gaza. And with millions struggling to find food, Richard Engel was in the skies over Gaza for an aid mission with the Jordanian military.
Outside of Amman, we boarded a Jordanian military C-130 cargo plane bound for Gaza. The crates it's carrying are full of some of the only food getting to 2.2 million Gazans. A month ago, the Biden administration gave Israel a clear ultimatum to allow in more aid by truck by tonight, or else U.S. military support could be reduced. But today, the U.S.
And that's not going to be stopping. Why? It's bad for business. There's money in war.
U.S. announced Israel has taken positive steps and will not withhold military aid for now.
We've seen some progress being made. We would like to see some more changes happen.
The UN and humanitarian groups do not agree, saying too little has changed, making these rare airdrops all the more critical.
And there they go. 8 tons of food and medicine, this time.
All I got to ask, will the parachutes work properly? There have been videos of these airdrops happening, and a couple of things happen. Hey, number one, best case scenario, they land safely, and, well, I guess people get food, aid, medicine, etc. Or the parachutes don't work, and they land on somebody. Or they drop, and nobody gets anything. Or worse, they do land, and when people do come to them, well, surprisingly, many of them might get attacked. It doesn't have to be this way. Seems to be that war, quote from Fallout, war never changes.
Being dropped over southern Gaza.
Our crew filmed crowds in Gaza grow excited as they watched the chutes open. Soon, they were off running, desperate to get whatever they could before it was gone. But 30-year-old Abdullah Maruf came back with an empty bag. It was a bust, he says. He explains another Palestinian family got to the aid first and fired guns in the air to keep everything for themselves. Law and order have broken down in Gaza.
When you create an environment of desperation, people will do whatever they have to do to survive. It's easy for us to say how we would react in a situation, but they're human beings like us. I like to say that there's a lesson to be learned from this, but how many times have we witnessed this repeat over and over again, a cycle of endless destruction? So I'm going to hit play and I'll leave my final thoughts on this video.
After a year of war and siege, so Abdullah went back to his tent to tell his wife and 4 children they'll have no food tonight.
Israel insists that it is allowing more aid in and blames the UN for failing to distribute it. The UN warns that parts of Gaza are once again on the brink of famine. Lester?
All right, Richard, thank you.
Now, that video was recently dropped by Case Study QB. Please be sure to follow him on all of his social media. I think I'll end this segment with something that also was recently dropped by Case Study QB. Be sure to follow him on his Twitter account. He's done phenomenal work, as you should, all the time, every time. because it explains once again why Kamala and the Democrats lost. And I would say to Fox News, have you not been paying attention to the protests or the people calling out Kamala Harris?
So many of them, including, by the way, Bernie Sanders, tried to get Biden to stop sending weapons to Israel, and he did. He threatened, Kamala Harris threatened during the campaign, if they don't do this and they don't do it this way, we're going to stop sending weapons. That was the red line for this group of Jewish voters.
Yeah, absolutely. And there were other times when Kamala was challenged by protesters. And he said, well, you have a point. Protesters who supported Hamas.
Right, you have a point.
And she said, well, you have a point.
No. Fox News, listen. There are of all the corporate media outlets, you hold a special spot in my heart. But at no point in time did any of those protesters say that they were pro-Hamas. They were for just the men, women, and children who were being shot at, starved, and their houses being blown up. Okay, you're not paying attention. Fox News, sit down. You're not paying attention here. Sit down, please.
Point. Yeah. And so there was this hemming and hawing, and people saw that. And, I just heard Congressman Richie Torres. He's a Democrat here in the Bronx. He gets it, and he says, we sent these dangerous messages. We need to clean house, come back. Democratic Party once was not like that. Bill Clinton, certainly, he supported Israel. And, Biden supported Israel. But you had these messages at different times, sending confused, contradictory messages. And I think the voters rejected that.
I just want to pull this up here. Saying Kamala Harris supported Palestinians too much, which is why Israeli voters stopped supporting her. Anytime a protest happened at a Democrat event, they were booed, they were kicked out violently, verbally assaulted, physically assaulted, and never forget Kamala told them that she is speaking. While Biden might have his senile moment where he's going to say, hey, can you avoid getting hit in the head with the camera? And I think it's important for us to get back to how this whole thing got started. This is an example of madness and insanity, stupidity, constantly repeating itself over and over and over again. This is not how a president should act. This is not how a leadership should act. And unfortunately, no lessons were learned from this war. And now with Trump coming into office, much will be left desired.
President Biden, do you think that you can get a hostage deal by the end of your term?
You think you can keep from getting hit in the head by a camera?
Think you can keep from getting hit in the head with a camera. I want Trump to succeed for peace. I really do. I hope that something is achieved. But to quote Bassem Youssef, no, this war, Israel's going to get away with it. Nothing will fundamentally change. And while we speak, some of us comfortably at home from a day off from work or heading to work, we have the peace and luxury knowing that when we go to work, at least because anything can happen, that more or less we live our days, we live our lives, and then we go home and start the whole process over again. People in Gaza, well, don't be surprised if there's somebody like you who's right now trying to fight for their life or the life of what remains of their family or friends. This is brutality and insanity. And I want there to be peace. But so long as there's money to be made, thank you, Supreme Court, for money in politics, the lobby groups, special interest groups are going to invest all what they can for endless war. It shouldn't be this way. So we will follow through on this story, as we should, as will all of our colleagues in independent media. But the brutality and man's inhumanity demand. Why is it that I fear when I'm much older, somebody younger than me, perhaps just getting started, will say, has it always been like this? And I will tell them the story that my grandpa once said. It's always been like this, and people haven't changed. We have to break this cycle. And it's a job of all of us as citizens and the responsibility of independent media to make our voices heard, to call for this madness to stop. Someday, just not today.